Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1611B, and today's date is July 9th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, Has Q Given Us a Timeline of Events? It Could Play Out This Way. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we've been following Obamacare for quite a while, and we understand that Obamacare is a complete and utter disaster. And we know that the numbers have been manipulated. We know that Obama has been moving money from one department to another to fund his Obamacare. We know that half the exchanges, they went bankrupt during his term. And the whole entire thing is a complete and utter disaster. And of course, they're taxing the people, which is completely unconstitutional, because it's taxation without representation. And if you don't join their healthcare system, you are penalized, which goes against pretty much everything. But what is happening right now, and we know that Trump, let me just say this first, he's trying to get rid of Obamacare, and it's very, very difficult because nobody wants to give, and nobody has a solution to replace Obamacare because it is so bad right now. And what happened here is those people that have small businesses and things like that, they are suffering. The premiums are continually rising, and they were rising way before Trump, before any of this. We've tracked this before. They've been going up. Now, what's very interesting right now is that the Trump administration, they had to halt billions of dollars in payments to health insurers after a court ruling. Now, of course, people are complaining about this and they're pissed off, but let's go back a little bit in time and make sense of all of this. And here is the timeline of key events. March 23rd, 2010, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is signed into law by Obama. That's Obamacare. March 11th, 2013, CMS finalizes a risk adjustment methodology for states where HHS operates the program that includes the use of statewide average premium in order to maintain a budget-neutral program. July 29th, 2016, New Mexico Health Connections files a complaint in U.S. District Court in New Mexico arguing, among other points, that CMS's use of statewide average premium was arbitrary and capricious. Minutemen Health, Inc. files a similar complaint in U.S. District Court in Massachusetts the same day. January 30th, 2018, the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts rules for CMS, finding that CMS acted within the authority in promulgating the HHS operated risk adjustment methodology based on statewide average premium. February 28th, 2018, the U.S. District Court for the District of New Mexico issued a decision invalidating CMS's use of statewide average premium in the risk adjustment transfer formula for the 2014-2018 benefit years, pending further explanation of CMS's reasons for operating the risk adjustment program in budget-neutral manner for those years. Following this decision, CMS files a motion for reconsideration. June 21st, 2018, a hearing is held on CMS's motion for reconsideration. Now, because of the New Mexico ruling, it looks like they have to follow it right now until it's changed. So this is why CMS Administrator Seema Verma is kind of upset, because they have to follow what the court ruled. And we can see right now that people are going to be complaining about this and most likely blaming it on Trump. Let's move on to what is happening with Rod Rosenstein and with this IG report, this redacted information. Well, we've come to find out they are doing a lot of tricky things. Over the past few years, the Department of Justice and the FBI redacted documents in the name of national security, but the real reason was later uncovered as an effort to hide their crimes. They also will not allow Congress to obtain copies of records, and instead only allow Congress to review documents maintained at an FBI or Department of Justice location. Now, this too is catching up to them, as their efforts to swap documents or create two versions of documents are now being uncovered. Wait, what is this? They're creating two sets of documents? Yes, this is what they are doing. During a recent hearing in front of Congress, some excellent questions were asked of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein by Matt Gaetz of Florida. Now, the problem with the FISA memo, it appears there were two different FISA memos that were presented by the FBI. One memo is the one that was presented to the FISA court and signed by Rod Rosenstein. The other memo is the one that the members of Congress were allowed to see. Apparently, either the documents were illegally duplicated or Rod Rosenstein is lying, both which are crimes. In addition, we are now seeing a pattern like the redacting of documents by the FBI to cover up FBI and Department of Justice crimes. The FBI and the Department of Justice will not provide Congress with copies of documents. They say they're doing this for national security reasons, but this is clearly not the case. The reason the FBI and the DOJ will not hand over copies of documents is because this way they can change or alter documents provided to different sources to hide their crimes. So they're giving one set of documents to Congress and they're keeping the other set. So basically, they're manipulating everything. And they've been found out now. And now it looks like it's a no-win situation for Rod Rosenstein. He's digging the hole deeper and deeper as time goes on. And I think it's only a matter of time before this whole IG report is declassified. I think we're leading up to that. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later with an anon that put together an entire timeline, took different pieces of Q's posts and made a timeline of what we could expect. But let's continue here. We see documents that were released Friday by the Department of Justice confirm that Department of Justice attorney known as Robert Mueller's Pitbull arranged an April 11, 2017 meeting with journalists to discuss their investigation into Paul Manafort, in which information may have been leaked back and forth concerning the case. Now, according to memos written by the FBI agents, Special Counsel Attorney Andrew Weissman, Mueller's number 2, who donated $6,600 to the DNC, Obama, and Clinton campaigns, and also reportedly attended Clinton's election nightly party in New York City, arranged a meeting between the Department of Justice and FBI officials and 4 reporters from the Associated Press, who told the FBI about a storage locker owned by Manafort and then gave the FBI a passcode to access it. Now, Manafort's attorneys received the documents on June 29th and revealed them in Virginia federal court filing as part of a push for a hearing into possible leaks of sealed grand jury information, false reports, and potentially classified materials. The meeting raises serious concerns about whether a violation of grand jury secrecy occurred. And this is coming from Manafort's attorney, Kevin Downing, in a motion requesting the hearing. Based on the FBI's own notes of the meeting, it is beyond question that a hearing is warranted. One of the memos written by the FBI Supervisory Special Agent Karen Greenaway reveals that the meeting was arranged by Andrew Weissman, who goes on to know that Weissman provided guidance to the reporters. I mean, this is just completely unbelievable how all of this is taking place and what they've been doing here, and now it's all coming out. I wanted to move on to Seth Rich because it seems like we might have a little bit of a break in the investigation with Seth Rich, and this is coming from the Gateway Pundit. They're reporting that a Washington, D.C. lobbyist who has been on the hunt for Seth Rich's killer found a credible witness who will identify the 2 men he believes murdered the DNC staffer. Jack Berkman, a Washington-based attorney and lobbyist, who has worked with a private investigative team to solve the Seth Rich murder mystery, told the Gateway Pundit that the witness has conclusive evidence that will bring Rich's killer or killers to justice within a month. We believe, and this is coming from Berkman, we believe that we have reached the beginning of the end of the Seth Rich murder investigation. After 2 long, hard years of work, we have a witness who is prepared to identify the 2 killers of Seth Rich. One is reportedly a current DEA drug enforcement agent. The other is reportedly ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives agent. Now, this witness fears for his life. Now, he's worked in government. He will be accompanied by armed guards, and he'll have a disguise so nobody can identify him. And he's going to provide this information. Now, how did they find this individual? Well, it looks like Berkman and others were working with retired Detective Sergeant Frank Whalen of the NYPD, who served as the head of NYPD homicide for 23 years. And they're saying that this individual did the research and they found him. And we thoroughly vetted this witness and we believe in this witness, Berkman said. He has evidence that substantiates his claims, but it will be revealed slowly. This witness is in great fear of his life. That's why we're going with disguising him, disguising his voice, and everything about him. So we might see something very big happen very, very soon. So we'll keep an eye on this story from the Gateway Pundit. We see out in Afghanistan, U.S. and Afghan military, their offensive against the Islamic State in the Nangarhar province is coming to an end. Officials say that the target, the border area, is going to be totally cleared of the Islamic State. And once again, we have the military forces actually going after the Islamic State. Prior to this, the deep state was controlling them. This is no longer taking place. We see out in North Korea, the mainstream media is going crazy on how the deal is breaking apart. Even Trump, tweeted that, China might be behind this. And again, he'll never tell you what is really going on. Q has said this many, many times before. Now, Pompeo, he brushed off North Korea's statements. We don't know if they're true. Coming out of North Korea, we see that North Korea still trusts Trump and still have a deal. And Pompeo told reporters in Tokyo, after traveling there to meet with Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono and South Korean Foreign Minister, saying, listen, I know what happened there. I spoke to these individuals and we spoke to them about the scope of denuclearization. They did not push back. North Korea reaffirmed the commitment to completely denuclearization. North Korea also reinforced earlier promise to destroy its missile engine test site. And we know that we need to verify all of this so the sanctions can be removed. And they understood this. And I think the corporate media is trying to really push this as hard as they possibly can to make it seem like this deal is falling apart. And it seems like Trump is just playing along with them, leading them in all different directions like he normally does. We see the French shipping company, the giant shipping company in France. It's one of the largest cargo shipping companies, CMA CGM. It looks like they're going to stop doing business with Iran out of fear of becoming embroiled in U.S. sanctions against the nation. And we see that they are now backing off. Iran is out there and they're saying that they're going to be closing the Strait of Hormuz if Trump continues on his quest to put pressure on them. And we need to understand that Iran, they really can't do this. The Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway with Iran on its north and Oman to its south. And at its narrowest point, which is about 50 kilometers wide, this is international water. And they don't have the ability to actually close it. Because based on the international laws of the sea, or the 1982 United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, Hormuz is an international strait because it is the only gateway between the Persian Gulf and the open sea. In all such straits, all ships have the right of transit, and the countries adjacent to the strait must not deny this right of transit and must inform all relevant officials about any danger that might threaten the vessels or planes that travel through the strait. Under international law and conventions, the right of transit cannot be superseded. Iranian parliament has not approved the 1982 UN Convention, but the Iranian government has signed it and so is thus committed to avoid any action that would violate the convention. However, at the time Iran signed the convention, it announced that it would only recognize the right of transit passage for countries that had also joined the convention. Now, the United States, they haven't signed the UN Convention. And based on what the government of Iran declared at the time of signing it, Iran does not recognize the right of transit passage for the U.S. Now, once again, this is international waters, and it gives the right of everyone to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So what Iran is saying really doesn't hold water at this point. Now, something very interesting. We know that Representative Jim Jordan, he went up against Rod Rosenstein, and he was hitting him really, really hard when he was questioning Rod Rosenstein. And what's very interesting, and I don't think this is a coincidence, Jim Jordan's nephew was killed in a car crash. He was 21 years old. He was Eli Stickley, who was a University of Wisconsin wrestler and a former state high school champion in Ohio in 2014. He died in a car crash on Thursday evening in Illinois. Now, this is very interesting because we know that Jim Jordan, he was hitting Rod Rosenstein very hard, actually kind of calling him a liar, and then all of a sudden his nephew got into a car crash. So again, I don't believe in coincidences. I think this is very strange and odd how this occurred, and we'll have to wait to see what the investigation tells us. Probably nothing, but this is just a huge coincidence that something like this would happen to Jim Jordan after he questioned Rod Rosenstein. Let's get into Q and Annan that put together a timeline, a tentative timeline for what we can expect in the coming months. Now, this is not, etched in stone or anything like that. I'm going to tell you my opinion of when I think things are going to happen. But let's look at what this Annan put together. Chapter 1, Down the Rabbit Hole, January 2018. Chappaqua server is confiscated by Q-Team. The key to the door of the rabbit hole. What happened during that period? Remember, there was a fire that broke out in Hillary and Bill Clinton compound in Chappaqua, New York? Well, it looks like they were able to get the server. Now with the server, which they have physically in hand, and they have the Wiener laptop, plus Assange's WikiLeaks evidence, they have a concrete case. February, Chapter 2. Mendoza steps down. FCC chair investigated Sinclair. March, Chapter 3. Sessions fires McCabe right before he retires. Trump claims Democratic bias in Mueller investigation. Chapter 4, April. Trump hires Giuliani. Rosenstein says Trump not target in Mueller probe. Chapter 5, May. Manafort's son-in-law cops plea deal. Mueller investigation 1-year mark. Public is starting to awaken. Then we see June, Chapter 6. Trump meets Kim Jong-un in Singapore. Kim tours the gardens. Q points towards the gardens. And there are a couple of posts of Q where it says Gardens by the Bay. See previous pic, and shows Kim Jong-un in the gardens having a great time. June, Chapter 6. Trump gets invitation to North Korea summit. In the book, the invitation is to the Queen's Garden. And what else did we get? Well, we got the IG report. July, Chapter 7. Mad Hatter Tea Party. Annans are made aware that Q Trump have the server. Chaos, panic in D.C., fireworks. July continued. A1 investigation brought up on bank fraud. Revealed that they're still looking into A1 might have flipped. We see Jeff Sessions will be in the news about middle of month. Trump meets with UK. Queen's protector of the garden middle of month. Trump meet with Putin afterwards. We move on to August now. Chapter 8. Alice uses the key server to enter the Queen's Garden. The server contents are now being released to the public. Great awakening happens. Now, we read Q's post where people are going to reject, people are going to be upset. And we can see that in August, this Anon believes this is when this is going to be released, and saying this is when the Great Awakening is going to happen. And he goes on to say, disgust The arrogance and evil is astounding. General public starts to call for head to roll. September, Chapter 9. Indictments start to be unsealed. Grand juries revealed. Public awakening continues. Anger. Those who are accused are afraid to walk the streets. Big arrests start being made. The stage is set for the final quarter. October, Chapter 10. Sessions becomes very relevant. Huber handles rest of country. Sessions starts D.C. prosecutions. Many revolt. Turmoil in D.C. Trials for treason begin towards the end of the month. Chapter 11, November. Military parade. And this is what Q has been talking about, 11/11. This is the end of World War I, Veterans Day. Military parade is cover for D.C. tribunals. Troops, I do believe, come home during this period. D.C. is on lockdown, may be necessary. Public supports it. By this time, many children, slaves are rescued. A healing feeling washes over the country and the world. I don't know at this point how people are going to take it. I don't know if they're going to say, oh yes, this is all true, and the healing starts. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that, but I think this is the beginning of the process. December, Chapter 12. The trials start to wrap up. The world begins the long journey to healing, not only our corrupt government system, but our planet in general. Finally, it feels like we've reached the turning point. Now, once again, this is a timeline where an Anon went through all the different Q posts and put all of this together and created this timeline. Now, Neon Revolt, which I do agree with, has a different view of this. He says, I think the unsealing of indictments is going to begin happening much sooner than this other Anon thinks. He puts it in September. Neon Revolt is saying this is most likely going to happen maybe July or early August at the very least, in order to prevent more false flag school shootings, which I do agree. Because if you remember what Q said, they waited until a lot of the schools were let out before this IG report came out to cut down on the events that might occur. And I do believe if they're going to release anything, I would believe it would be the end of July, the beginning of August. And again, at the beginning of August, Congress goes on vacation. Now, I know they're calling and asking Congress to stay, but this might be a perfect period of time because schools are completely out of session and it might cut down on any type of false flags. Now, I don't think the Q team is going to hesitate in releasing this information, especially because Q has already said they moved up the timetable. Trump has already decided to start the attack. And I do believe that this is a perfect time. Now, think about what's happening here. Trump is going to meet with Putin on July 16th. We're going to see the troops. They're going to start to be removed from the Middle East. We have the peace talks with North Korea. They're already looking at another summit location to have a summit. Once Trump is finished meeting with Putin, we're going to see a lot happen. And I think all of this will be way too much for the deep state, the mainstream media to handle. And I think this is the perfect time, since school is out and things like that, to release all of this, because we've been seeing the questioning. We've been seeing what has been going on. We know Rosenstein, the FBI, they haven't given the documents that the House has requested. So this is the perfect time to show the world how corrupt the system is and what they've been doing, and let the chips fall where they may. And I think the time is now, and I think this is why Q is saying that they moved up the timeline. And this is why Q has been saying all they have to do is ask, and Trump will declassify the IG report and let it loose, because they have the server, they have the laptop, they have the WikiLeaks information, they have it all. And Q has said this many, many times. So I think we're going to see something really, really big happen between July and August, this time frame. So we'll have to wait and see. Listen, everyone, thanks for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.